Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to my channel once again. Today, I will be doing part one of the April 2018 Simon Says Stamp card kit, and this includes the Beautiful Day 6x8 clear stamp set, exclusive Simon Says Stamp Butterfly 6x6 stencil, a 12 single-sided sheets of Lawn Fawn Really Rainbow 6x6 paper pad, Tim Holtz Distress Oxide inks in Squeeze Lemonade and Mermaid Lagoon, Tim Holtz Ranger Distress Blending Brush, one sheet of Thermal Web Gina K Designs Sparkling Silver Fancy Foil, two Simon Says Stamp Brilliant Ultra Heavy White envelopes, two sheets of Simon Says Stamp 120-pound card stock, Simon Says Stamp 100-pound cardstocks in Island Blue, Dull Pink, Bright Yellow, and Lipstick Red. So that is everything that was included in the Simon Says Stamp card kit for this month, and unfortunately it's out of stock, so this video is more for inspiration. So here I've cut down all my cardstock papers and fold them, and the measurements are 4.5 by 4.25 by 5.5. So to start off with card number one, I am grabbing that white card base, and I'm grabbing one of the rainbow gradient with stripes pattern paper, and I'm doing my no measurement knowing type of cutting, I guess. And so I drew the lines, cut it down to size. Now what I'm doing is I'm grabbing that stencil that comes in the kit, and grabbing my Ranger clear embossing ink, and I am using that pad and rubbing the ink to get the image of that stencil. So before I did that, I ran to my bedroom where I have my son's changing table and grab some baby powder because I don't have the crafting powder, but I heard it was baby powder, so I thought I'd give it a try, and it worked out pretty good, so I didn't have to spend too much on that. So here you see me rubbing that clear ink on the image on the stencil, and I'm doing kind of like 2 to 3 images at a time because I don't want the stencil to rub off the ink that I've already laid down. So I stop, add some Gina K fine detail embossing, white embossing powder, and then I heat set that, and then I move on to the next images and keep doing that until I am left with what you see now. Next, I grabbed the Simon Says Stamp mini cube in, I believe it's Wisteria, that came in last month's kit, and I just rubbed that on the edges, kind of going inward. Next, I grabbed my acrylic block and some black acrylic paint that I had on hand. You can use whatever black ink you have or paint you have. And I am doing some splashes all on the card panel here, or pattern paper. I'm still not familiar with what I'm supposed to be saying to describe what, like, the layering of the card here, so bear with me. So I added some more splashes by rubbing the paintbrush onto the acrylic block, which helps kind of control where the splashes go. And then I heat set everything up because I am impatient. So here I am using my stamping platform to stamp the sentiment, "Today's a new day." And then I use some foam tape and put that towards the back, and then I go ahead and adhere that to my white card base. And I had wanted to get some foam to not use so many little squares, but I forgot to go to the store, and so there you go. So on the inside, I am stamping the sentiment, "Keep Smiling," and that pretty much finishes this card. It's cute and simple. you don't have to waste a whole bunch of time. Anyways, card number 2. I am using the dull pink cardstock card base, and I am using some of my own white paper here. This is Tim Holtz Distress stamping paper, and it's already cut to size. It comes pre-cut in the 4.25 by 5.5, and I cut it down even more so the um, pink cardstock would show a little bit more. I wanted the butterfly and the card to kind of play off each other while on the white area. So I grabbed the Distress ink that comes with the kit, the Distress oxide ink, sorry, and use the blending tool. Now, FYI, I'm not a big fan of the blending tool. I'm not sure if it was the paper I was using, but I felt that the bristles were kind of hard and were coming off a little bit. And I'm not sure if I would have the same feeling if I used just regular cardstock, but this distress paper kind of has like a slick film on top of this paper, so maybe that's what didn't help either. But either way, as of right now, I wasn't feeling it too much. That's why I don't use it as much. Anyways, so I grabbed that green pattern paper that comes in the 6x6 pad, and I used my scalloped Friskers scissors, and I cut out like a hill pattern or a shape, and then I used my archival ink in that lime green shade, and I'll list the actual color in the either the description or on my blog. And I ink up the edges where the scalloped edges is, and I made a boo-boo. I had rubbed on some tape adhesive on there that I did not intend to have on there, so I'm using these tools to not ruin the paper. And I don't know if you could see that white little dot where I rubbed it off too much. So basically everything gets covered up, and you'll see how I do that um, in the next couple of steps here. So next I grab this butterfly that I had pre-colored, and I kind of did a messy job, so I'm just showing you here how to kind of erase or still be able to use like the stuff you pre-color even if it's a messy job with just a gel pen, or if you had like what is that, a whiteout, that would work too. So to fix that little boo-boo I made at the bottom and cover up the fact that I peeled off a little bit of that green paper, I just stamped the sentiment on that area: "You are simply the best." And then I stamped the little swirly flying line there. And then these leaves I pre-colored as well, just to save some time. And I glue those down with just some tacky glue. And then I add the butterfly. And as you can see, when I was trying to figure out placement for this butterfly, my fingers ran or swept through that line. And since I stamped with Versa Fine Onyx black ink, it wasn't dry yet. And I'm not a big fan of that on slick surfaces, so I should have used archival ink for that, but I didn't. But anyways, you saw how I ended up covering that with the leaves, and inside I stamped "You make me feel like I can fly." So to finish off the card here, I felt like it needed a little bit more interest, so I used my glossy accents, and I don't do it all over the image, just on certain areas like the inner and the outer areas of that butterfly. And I just thought it gave it a nice look. And that completes card number 2. Card number 3. So as you can see, I use all these archival inks in different colors to match the pattern paper I plan to use, which is this right here. So it looks kind of like paper, wide rule paper. So I just cut one of the columns there, and I score a line where I want it, so that way I know not to stamp beyond that line. So I just start with like red. I don't really go in with the color theory I guess method. I just kind of start stamping different colors, and I'm using that same butterfly, so I'm having to apply some of the ink that I want, and then stamping that, and then taking the butterfly off, and then seeing where I want it placed, and then stamping it again. And I'm just doing this over and over again with different colors. And then again, I'll list all the archival ink colors that I used um, on the description, on the YouTube description box, or on my blog. On my blog, I'm able to actually have the pictures for you to see the actual color and click on it if you wish to purchase it. So right here, I'm just finishing stamping all these butterflies. Can I tell you guys how much I love this thing? Like, this makes life so much easier. When you don't get a perfect image, I can just slap that cover down and get the right image. It made life so much easier. I'm so glad that I got this thing for basically a steal in my book. So anyways, I grabbed that pattern paper that I cut down into a little column, and I grab my scissors and start distressing the edges there. And I thought it was like the edges were too white, so I did go in with the archival ink in like a faded gray color. And for some reason, my camera didn't shoot that, so I don't have that. But all I did was I applied that color to the edges. And then I stamped "Have a Beautiful Day" on the inside. And on the outside, I did the "Today is a New Day" in black. Off to card number 4, I believe. And I'm using this cardstock. This is actually the cardstock that came in the kit from Simon Says. And I went ahead and stamped a bunch of these butterflies in clear embossing ink from Ranger. And I'm not a big fan of this ink, but it's what I had on hand. And then I'm using the Gina K Fine Detail white embossing powder, and I'm heat setting all of that. And I'm trying really hard not to warp this paper at all. But I think I did a good job. I let it heat for a little bit. Then I used the little 2 small butterflies in the stamp set and used those to fill in the gaps between the butterflies. Next, I grabbed the oxides, both that came in the kit, and I added my own from what I had in my stash, the Distress Stain in Picked Raspberry. And I don't have a sprayer, so I just added some water with my fingers. And then I'm smushing the cardstock onto the inks there, or the oxides. And then I use the pink one, and the reason I use this one because I wanted kind of like a purple tone, and I knew that the pink would kind of give me that effect. And so I'm just smushing it, and it ended up a little bit more on the purple side, but I really liked it that I didn't feel like I needed to mess with it anymore. So I go in and I add some Distress Oxide splashes. Next, I'm using some Distress gel medium here, and the reason for that is because I used oxides and they react with water, and I did not want any of that to be moved. And then on top of that, I do use Mosh Podge in glossy, and the reason I did it in that order was because the collage is not water it doesn't water activate, and Mosh Podge does, and Mosh Podge gives me the glossy. So that's why I layered the Distress gel medium on top, and then the Mosh Podge glossy, so just to give me a glossy feel instead of it looking all muted. Next, I just grabbed a box cutter that I had, and it's really not sharp at all. So it gave me this like distressed edging where I cut the butterfly out. So I kind of had to mimic that on the edges. So it kind of pulls all together like if I did it on purpose. And then next, I use these foam squares to pop the card panel up against this blue card base here. And then I'm just messing with the wings to make them look like they're flapping up away from the card so you can see the blue from the bottom. And then I did stamp "You Are Simply the Best" off that big butterfly, where that the underneath that butterfly was kind of faded, so that kind of helped. Next, I just grabbed some watercolor white paper because the cardstock was too dark for me to stamp on it, and I just wanted the sentiment to show through, and I stamped "You Make Me Feel Like I Can Fly." Next, I used some of that white, like puffy um, drops, and I think I grabbed those from Walmart at some point. And then I use glossy accents and do some little droplets here and there. That was my first time ever doing that. So I think up at the top where I'm currently adding the glossy accents on that wing right there, they kind of smush together, those dots smush together, but I kind of left it like that. I didn't mess with it anymore. So I didn't want to risk messing the entire card. So I add glossy accents to the rest of this butterfly just to give it some shine and interest. You can't really tell on the camera here, but it made a difference. This is card number 5, and this one was so much fun. So of course, I don't have a die cut machine or any punchers or anything like that. So I wanted to do something fun without having all these tools. So what I did is I grabbed that stencil and I trace the right side of the wing and then the left side of the wing on at the same time on pattern paper, on that like rainbow striped colored paper. And then I drew a straight line to make sure that the line looks straight from connecting each of those wings. So I cut them out, and it really wasn't hard to cut out. So then I'm lining them up, making sure that everything matches so it doesn't look all wonky. And then I cut them out as well. Now I'm just lining them up, making sure that everything is lined up. So I add some of it's not even sticky painter's tape, but I just need it to hold the card and the pattern paper in place while I drew the line here, and I cut it down to the proper size. Next, I grab the other half of the pattern paper that I had cut out, and I am trying to line them up. So the plan here is to grab that scrap rainbow paper and have it lined up but going opposite colors. So instead of starting with pink, now it's starting with the lilac going all the way down to the pink. And I'm trying to line up as best as I can those lines so it doesn't look too off. So once I get that, I make a mark with my pencil just so that I know exactly where I need to glue it or stick it onto the card. So that way when I stick it, it matches the front. And then I cut the excess off once I've glued that down. And I just did it with regular adhesive tape. And I went ahead and used the largest butterfly in the stamp set and stamped that onto the front there. And I felt that I stamped the butterfly too low, so it left a gap at the top, and I felt it just needed something. So first I stamped the actual large sentiment that says "Have a beautiful day," and then I end up going back and putting another smaller sentiment at the top that says "Today is a new day." So it should read "Today is a new day, have a beautiful day." And I'm stamping all of this in archival ink, since that mishap with the other card with that butterfly where I messed it up with the VersaFine black ink. So I just started using archival ink from that card on. And so now that I have everything secured, I did pop that front card panel with some foam tape adhesive. And then I'm using this Nuvo shimmer pen from the past kit and adding some shimmer to each of these butterflies. And you can't see it right now how much of a difference it makes, but you will see once I bring it up to the light. And then I use the glossy accents once again, and I use that all over the butterfly. I find myself that I can't stop. I just want to add that everywhere. And then I added some drops as well. So you see here, you can see how beautiful that shimmer pen does on this butterfly. Sorry, I'm having a hard time talking. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked the cards that I made today and got inspired. And as always, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you are not already subscribed, you can go ahead and click my picture. And you can also view these past 2 videos from last month's Simon Says Stamp card kits. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.